Sometimes, friends enter our lives when we least expect them to. And they change the way we do things forever. But sometimes those friends come in forms that surprise us. Like, say, the form of a tiny abandoned dog on the side of the road. Meet Paco, a stray dog from Mexico who was nearly hit by a car. But now Paco gets to jump off cliffs with Chase, his adrenaline junkie owner. Chase is the kind of guy who can't just leave an animal in need on the side of the road. And Paco is the kind of dog who definitely just won the owner lottery. So now he travels the US in a converted school bus and lives as a real-life adventure dog. Chase Reinford is a 23-year-old YouTuber with nearly 500 Kelvin subscribers. He makes neat videos about jumping off cliffs and stuff. He's also got a pretty hefty following on Instagram, if you're into that sort of thing. Reinford isn't content to just sit back and let life pass him by. His goal is to push himself to the limit in every aspect. He's a pilot and adventurer, but his first and greatest love is cliff jumping. He travels the US in a converted school bus. In only 11 days, he and his friends added solar panels, a sink, stove, and a bed to create a veritable adventure vehicle that would allow him to remain on the road for months at a time. In November of last year, Reinford was driving through a near-empty desert road on his way to Lake Powell. All of a sudden, the car in front of him swerved to avoid a dog in the middle of the road. Reinford slammed on his brakes as hard as he could to try to avoid the pooch but almost ran right into him. Luckily, he managed to swerve out of the way just in time, missing the little guy by 3 or 4 feet. Reinford got out of his bus to check on the dog, who ran right up to him and into his arms. Even though everything inside the bus was in disarray, the dog, Paco, didn't seem to mind, and he made himself at home. Reinford was used to living on the road, traveling to wherever the next adventure would take him. Having a dog was a huge responsibility, and he wasn't sure if he was up to the task. Initially, Reinford thought Paco would be too afraid of the dirt bikes to be able to hang. But he was dead wrong. Paco not only loved the dirt bikes, but he managed to keep up with Reinford and his friends while they were on them. The dirt bikes were only the beginning of Paco's adventures. Reinford rented a boat for a few days thinking Paco would be afraid of the water, but again, the tiny adventure dog proved him wrong. He was turning out to be quite the outdoor companion. For a while, Reinford left Paco on the bus while he went base jumping for an hour or two. But Paco wanted in on the action, and Reinford quickly realized the little dog deserved a chance at some more extreme activity. Reinford figured Paco could just have a front seat for the action. At least he'd be able to see what everyone was doing instead of sitting in the bus all by himself. But even that was not enough. Paco freaked out when he saw Reinford jump off the side of a cliff, so Reinford made the decision to dog him along. He strapped a harness to Paco and the two took their first base jump together. Not only did Paco love the hike up, but he ran straight to the edge, excited to go. And when he and Reinford jumped, he handled it like a pro, no shaking or whining at all. Now that he knew what to expect, Paco took the jump like he'd been doing it his whole life. And he did it dressed as Santa Claus, which honestly makes the entire thing 1000% more adorable. Reinford believes Paco is a real miracle dog. He should have died on the side of the road that day in November, but instead he's living it up with Reinford and his adventuring friends. He's making every day count. If Reinford's YouTube isn't enough to satisfy your need for awesome cliff jumping dogs, Paco shares his adventures with Reinford on Instagram at Roadside Paco. He's got almost 50,000 followers already, which is infinitely more than we will ever hope to have. He hopped up into the cockpit, ready to go. Although Reinford was nervous about the wind, Paco didn't seem to mind at all, at least until they got up into the air. When turbulence kicks in, even adventure dogs have bravery limits. Reinford and Paco flew into Salt Lake City to pick up the bus before heading down to Mexico. While they were there, they decided to make a detour up into the mountains to try and find some snowboard-worthy snow. While Reinford was huffing and puffing his way up the side of the mountain, Paco was just cruising along, stoked to be on another adventure. Who would have guessed that a tiny dog from Mexico could love being in the snow so much? From Mexico up through the States and back, Paco has seen and done more than most little dogs will ever do in their little lifetimes. He's been to beaches, to the snow, to desert mountains. And there's no telling if and when he'll stop. Paco isn't quite the international traveler, yet. Mexico is just a short drive from San Diego, so he hasn't had the chance to go on some of Reinford's bigger trips, like his recent visit to Thailand. But we know Reinford is always thinking of his best buddy while he's gone. When Reinford asked the locals about Diesel, they told him he was a nuisance and that he could have him. He had a gimp back leg and was covered in ticks, but that didn't stop Reinford and Paco from swooping him up to join them on their adventures. And how could he not? Diesel is just as loving and affectionate as Paco, and he's playful as hell, too. Besides, Paco could definitely use a furry best friend to keep him company in the sand. When Reinford took Diesel to the vet, he was told the dog had cancer that it couldn't be treated and he would be better off left behind. But Reinford wouldn't take no for an answer, so he took Diesel to a second vet, who started him on chemotherapy. Luckily, vet costs in Mexico are much more affordable than in the States. Currently, Diesel needs to complete a round of chemo, get his vaccinations, and get some flea and tick medication. Beyond that, he'll need surgery on his back leg to help with his gimp. If you enjoyed this story, then wait for our next story starting in 10 seconds. There are few animal stories as heartwarming as that of BLT. These bear and lion and tiger friends, 3 animals that have been together for their entire lives, treat each other like family. They nuzzle up to each other regularly and almost never were apart. But sadly, nothing lasts forever, not even a friendship this strong. Because 2 of the trio have had to say goodbye to their brother. But what really surprised zookeepers was how the BLT friends spent their final moments together. And the close bond that these animals shared shows us all the true power of friendship. Noah's Ark Animal Sanctuary is the home to 3 very unusual animals. Nicknamed the BLT, the trio of a bear, lion, and tiger have been together since they were little. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. These 3 friends are a very unusual sight because under most circumstances, they shouldn't get on this well. Normally, these 3 animals would be at each other's throats, but at Noah's Ark, they all seem to get along just fine. In fact, they hate being separated. The BLT is a rare example of these 3 animals all getting along together. It all started when they were very little. As with all good stories, this one starts with a drugs raid. A police bust in an Atlanta home found a tiger, a lion, and a bear that really shouldn't have been locked in the basement. The trio were in bad shape. They were kept in tiny cages, and were riddled with parasites. It was clear that they needed special attention. Getting the animals back to good health took a lot of effort. They'd grown too large for their harnesses and cages. The lion's cage bars had rubbed its nose raw, while the bear's restraints had to be surgically removed. The trio were eventually taken to the Noah's Ark Animal Sanctuary, where their new life began. But keepers soon learned that even with a lot of space to roam, the 3 still preferred to stay together. The animals' fraternal bond seemed very strong indeed, likely due to their shared early trauma. Finding ways to allow them to live together, keepers set about coming up with names for the trio. The bear cub was given a name from Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book. Like the colorful bear from the famous Disney movie, he was named Baloo. Meanwhile, the tiger was also named for a Jungle Book character. Shere Khan felt like a fitting name for such a noble beast. There is no lion character in The Jungle Book, so instead, the 3rd brother was named Leo. This reference to the star sign was a perfect fit. To the casual observer, Leo might well look like a lioness, rather than a male. This is because of an early neutering operation that Leo underwent, which has meant that his mane didn't grow when he reached adulthood. Sadly, this was only the start of Leo's health problems. As he got older, it became clear that the lion was suffering from a severe illness. Leo was booked in for exploratory surgery to discover what was wrong. With Leo absent, Baloo and Shere Khan comforted each other. Keepers believed that even these animals were able to tell that their brother was sick, as his deterioration was so visible. During the surgery, it was found that Leo's liver was basically non-functional. He must have been in a lot of pain, and vets agreed that it was best for him to be put to sleep. But the keepers weren't going to let Leo go just yet. The lion was revived one last time, so that he'd have the chance to say a proper goodbye to his brothers. It was hard to tell whether any of the animals actually understood what was going on as they snuggled together one last time. Certainly, Baloo and Shere Khan knew that their brother was sick, but they likely couldn't understand that they were saying goodbye. Yet in spite of their lack of understanding, the trio hugged and cuddled together one last time. Then, when they'd had that last moment together, Leo was taken away to be put to sleep. Considering the strength of the family bond between these animals, keepers kept a close eye on Baloo and Shere Khan following their brother's death. They were concerned that the animals might experience some form of depression. Thankfully, though, the pair had each other. According to keepers, they dealt with the loss incredibly well, and are still a united pair who spend all their time together. Saying goodbye is never easy. The staff at the sanctuary also wanted the chance to grieve, so they threw a party of sorts in celebration of Leo's life. These 3 animals have taught their keepers that family is about more than just shared parentage. The BLT were united throughout their entire lives together, and 2 of them are still going strong. While the lion may be gone from the BLT, this trio of animals serve as a reminder that we get to choose who we love, and that good friends can last a lifetime.